Anne Frank was born on June 12, 1929 in Frankfurt, Germany. From the moment she was born, she brought light into the world with her bright, curious eyes and cheerful nature. Anne was the second daughter of Otto and Edith Frank. Her older sister, Margot, was born 2 years before her. Although Anne and Margot were sisters, they were very different. Margot was calm, quiet, and thoughtful, while Anne was lively, curious, and always full of questions. Anne loved to laugh and play, and she had a small, friendly smile that made people around her feel happy. When Anne was 4 years old, her family moved to the Netherlands. Her father, Otto, had trouble finding work in Germany because of growing political troubles. The move was hard, but Anne's family stayed close and supportive. They settled in Amsterdam, where Anne learned to read and write. She quickly fell in love with books and stories. Anne spent many hours reading fairy tales, poems, and adventure stories. She also started to write, filling notebooks with her own thoughts and imaginative tales. In 1940, when Anne was 11, Nazi Germany invaded the Netherlands. Suddenly, life changed for Jewish people like the Frank family. They experienced unfair rules. They had to wear Star of David badges, could not visit parks, and had to go to separate schools. Many people were afraid. Anne's father, Otto, lost his job. The family decided to go into hiding to protect themselves from being sent away to concentration camps. On July 6, 1942, the Frank family went into hiding. Anne, her parents Otto and Edith, and her sister Margot moved into a secret space behind a bookcase in Otto's office building. Later, they were joined by another family, the Van Pels family, Herman, August, and their son Peter, and a dentist named Fritz Pfeffer. Throughout this time, Anne was 12 years old, turning 13 the next month. As they moved into the hidden, secret annex, as Anne called it, she brought a small red and white checkered diary. Little did she know, this diary would become a powerful witness to history. Life in the annex was quiet and strict during the day. They had to move quietly, speak softly, and remain hidden. Otto Frank had contacts who brought them food and supplies. Although they were safe from the Nazis for a while, they lived with constant fear. Every noise in the building above or on the street below scared them. Anne missed school, friends, and sunshine. She struggled with loneliness, fear, and missing the life she once knew. At night, after everyone had gone to sleep, the hidden families shared stories by candlelight. Anne loved those evenings. She told stories, heard jokes, and listened to Peter's shy but comforting voice. She found friendship with Peter Van Pels, even though at first they argued and didn't get along. They played cards, shared meals, and sometimes Anne teased Peter until he laughed. She learned courage and kindness from him in return. When Anne turned 13 on June 12, 1942, just days after going into hiding, she celebrated quietly in the annex. She received small gifts, a scarf, socks, and more paper for her diary. She began to write more earnestly, using the name Kitty when she addressed her thoughts in the diary. In her writing, Anne poured out her hopes, fears, dreams, and frustrations. She wrote about how much she missed freedom. She wrote about arguments and laughter with the others. And she wrote about hope, even in the darkest times. Anne's diary entries became more thoughtful, mature, and inspiring. She practiced French, worked on essays, and expressed a desire to be a journalist or writer. She believed that when the world returned to normal, she would write for the public. Anne wrote, "In spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart." Her words showed her growing spirit and unshakable faith in humanity, even when living through fear and suffering. Days in the annex followed a routine. Wake up early for Otto to go to work in the hidden office, breakfast together, quiet time for reading or studying, and more time hiding through the day. In the evenings they could converse more freely. Anne's dreams of being a writer grew stronger as she wrote letters, stories, and essays. She even revised her diary, turning it into a short novel titled The Secret of the Attic. Although she knew she might never be discovered, or she might be found, she wrote as if her diary would live on. Anne's birthday celebrations in hiding became small, quiet, but full of love. She celebrated turning 14 on June 12, 1943, in the annex. With the limited supplies they had, she entertained herself by telling stories and joking with the others. The families sang, "Happy Birthday," and she received homemade gifts, drawings, poems, or folded paper cranes. Otto gave her a pen and more paper. She wrote in her diary, "Today I am 14, and I feel that something wonderful is about to happen, although I don't know what it is." Even in hiding, Anne kept her sense of humor. She joked about being a teenager, about Peter acting shy, and about the challenges of being cooped up in the annex. As the war dragged on, food became scarcer. The helpers who brought supplies risked their own lives nightly. The people in the annex shared every crumb. Anne and Peter sometimes whispered in the attic at night, holding each other's hands, seeking comfort. Anne wrote in her diary that Peter's presence felt like a kind of home, a place where she could dream again. Throughout 1943, conditions in the annex worsened. Bombings above Amsterdam shook the building. The 8 people inside felt every rattle and tremble. In January 1944, the Frank sisters reached out through the attic stairs and banged on the ceiling of the rooms below. They asked the families living on the floors below to reduce their noise, but this was dangerous. Eventually, the darkest day came in August 1944. On August 4, 1944, the door to the secret annex opened without warning. German soldiers and police officers stormed in. The 8 people were rounded up, searched, and removed. Anne was terrified. She had lived for more than 2 years under the plates of silence, under the weight of fear. And now it had ended in that moment. The families were taken to the Gestapo headquarters, then to a Dutch concentration camp called Westerbork, and later shipped to Auschwitz in Poland in September. Anne's diary fell behind when they were discovered. It survived because one of the helpers, Miep Gies, found it and kept it safe. She hoped to give it back to Anne after the war. But Anne and Margot were sent from Auschwitz to Bergen, Belsen, another camp in Germany. There, both sisters fell ill. Typhus took them in early 1945. Anne died just a few weeks before the camp was liberated in mid-April 1945. She was 15 years old. Otto Frank was the only member of the family to survive. He returned to Amsterdam after the war and learned of his beloved wife, Edith, Margot, and Anne's deaths. In 1947, Miep Gies gave Otto Anne's diary. He read her writings, her dreams, her laughter, her pain. The pages were rich with life. He decided to fulfill Anne's wish to be a writer. He arranged for its publication. The original diary, plus the revised version Anne made called The Secret of the Attic, were published together as The Diary of a Young Girl. The world read Anne's words. She became a symbol of hope and humanity. People were moved by how, at a young age amid great suffering, she believed in people, dreamed of peace, and described life beautifully. Her writing helped readers understand the terrible time of the Holocaust, but also reminded them of the power of new beginnings. Schools around the world started teaching her story. Students learned about the Holocaust, anti-Semitism, and human rights through her diary. Museums were built. The Anne Frank House in Amsterdam became a memorial and museum, welcoming millions of visitors who walked into the secret annex rooms she described so vividly. Anne's birthday, June 12, is now celebrated globally as Anne Frank Day. Each year, people remember her bright spirit, compassion, and courage in hard times. Young readers especially connect to her. Someone so close in age who had so much to say. They see her hopes in their own dreams. Because of Anne's diary, Her voice lives on. She taught the world important lessons, that hatred and fear must be fought, that silence allows injustice, and that anyone, even a young girl with a diary, can change hearts. Many schools encourage students to write their thoughts, thinking of Anne's red and white checkered diary. Teachers emphasize that every person has a story, and every truth matters. Anne's message. How wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. Today, people continue to learn from Anne. Her diary is translated into more than 70 languages. It is read in classrooms, libraries, and homes. Her words encourage kindness, challenge prejudice, and remind people to stand up for justice. In a world still troubled by conflict, Anne's belief in hope, even in spite of everything, remains a guiding light. Anne Frank never walked under a spring sky, never graduated from school, never had a chance to grow old. But through her words, she lives. Her birthday, June 12, is no longer just a day for a young girl. It is a day for the world to remember hope, courage, and the power of truth. When someone reads her diary today, they feel as though Anne is speaking to them, as though she is still in the attic, writing by candlelight. She tells her fears, her anger, her hopes, and she never lies. She makes us care. She challenges us to think about what we would do in her place. Would we stay silent, or would we speak up? Would we show kindness, even when it is risky? Even when other people hate? The story of Anne Frank reminds us that a diary is not always just a book with blank pages. It can be a seed. When planted, it can grow into understanding, compassion, and change. Anne planted her seed in 1942. Today, that seed is a forest of voices fighting hatred and darkness. When someone reads, "I still believe people are really good at heart," they feel hope. Anne Frank's life and writing teach us to look within ourselves and ask, how can we be more brave, more kind, more honest, more human? Her birthday, June 12, reminds us each year of the spark that a single person can bring to the world. Her voice, through the pages of her diary, continues to speak to new generations. And by listening, we can honor her memory and help make the world a place she believed it could be.